you got a crab apple. I do. So, good luck.
This will talk about Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Peconic Landing members, and especially welcome to non-Peconic Landing members. We love to see that, yes indeed. Yeah. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brian. I'm the Cultural Arts Coordinator here, and part of my job is to bring entertainment, cultural, educational stuff. And I'm not lying when I say my favorite people to deal with from outside of our campus are the folks at the North Fork Environmental Council. They are super easy and pleasant to deal with, and even better, super knowledgeable. So I'm really, really happy to be hosting them here again. So I'm going to hand the microphone now to Anne Murray.
Thank you, Brian. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Anne Murray. As Brian said, I'm the Southfield Land Use Coordinator for NFEC. And we have a very special program this afternoon. We got an email from Lilla Chicco back in, March, I think, and she said, do you need an intern this summer? And Dawn passed it on to me, and I was like, yeah, let's check this out. And she turned out to be a wonderful addition to NFEC this summer. She's done a lot of good work on pollinators, which you'll see very shortly. She's a student at the University of Liverpool in the UK, and she's majoring in environmental science, and she'll be great. She's very passionate about pollinators, and you'll soon see why. And I hooked her up this summer with Laura Clary, who has Blossom Meadow Farm in Southfold, because I knew that Laura's done a lot of important work with pollinators. Laura has worked for the Department of the Interior, Peconic Estuary Program, and the Nature Conservancy before starting her farm. And you'll see, you'll be able to sample some of her jams on your way out when we finish the program. So without anything further, I'd like to introduce Lilla, and she'll be teaching you all about pollinators.
Hello everyone, my name is Lilla Chicco, and today I will be talking to you about the world of alternative pollinators. I'm sure many of you know pollination is the transference of pollen from the male part of the flower, the anther, to the female part of the flower, the stigma, enabling reproduction. A large majority of plants rely on pollinators for the continuation of their life cycle, as they are the ones delivering the pollen. Whether that be wind, water, bird, or insect, they all play a role. Hopefully that has refreshed your mind on what pollination is, but I'm sure you'd like to know why it's so important. The simple truth is we can't live without them. Not to sound alarmist, but this is the nuts and bolts of our food supply and environment as we know it. Without pollinators, most of the earth as we know it, including ourselves, would not be here. We have pollinators to thank for nearly 80% of plant crops around the world. Insects alone provide $500 billion worth of direct benefit to agriculture through their pollination services. As a result of pollination, plant species are maintained, which results in them being able to absorb carbon and pollutants in the air, supporting ecosystem stability. Now that is clear why we're talking about pollination, I want to introduce to you what alternative pollinators are and why they are important for our future. When you think of a pollinator, your first thought is probably a bee. And that's not wrong, I just want to expand your perspective and knowledge on what a pollinator is. An alternative pollinator is essentially any pollinating species that is not dominant or typical in most cases, anything but a bee, specifically the honeybee. So why alternative? Whilst bees are very important, it is important to recognize their significant decline, with an increase in honeybee colony decline averaging 40 to 50% annually. So as well as continuing efforts in conserving bees, utilizing a wider range of pollinators reduces the associated risk of relying on a single species. As a result of climate change and habitat destruction, the bees are unable to tolerate these changing temperatures, extreme weather conditions, and are uneasily able to adapt to new habitats. Certain species like the flower fly are able to adapt to a wide range of climates and don't require a hive for their habitat. Flowers have differing attributes such as shape, color, size, and scent. These varying characteristics call for specialists, as one type of pollinator couldn't possibly cater efficiently to all of these variations. For example, moths are more efficient at pollinating night-blooming flowers, like evening primrose, four-o'clocks, and yucca plants, whereas beetles are ancient pollinators that have maintained many strongly scented plants through chewing a small hole in their leathery petals to access them. Whilst this is an unusual technique, it is a very effective one for ancient plant species like magnolias and water lilies. And hummingbirds are able to use their long beaks to access deep and tubular flowers, such as bee balms and trumpet honeysuckle. Overall, the specialization of these pollinators means that they can often be more efficient at pollinating certain things over bees. This increases the quality and quantity of crops. Increasing pollinator diversity discourages monoculture and improves biodiversity, as well as connect fragmented and isolated land. The reason this is important to connect these landscapes is to prevent the extinction of certain plant and consequently animals. So let's get to know your local alternative pollinators. The winged wonders currently on the screen hardly scratch the surface of our native species that make the surrounding environment the special place it is. I'm sure you recognize most, if not all of these, from the ruby-throated hummingbird you may hear buzzing in the morning to the fireflies lighting up your garden in the evening. However, the cipher fly may not be as familiar, and I'm here to change that. So, meet the flower fly, otherwise known as a cipher or hoverfly. Before you close your mind to the word fly, the flower fly is not a pest or a nuisance that spreads disease. There's much more than meets the eye. The flower fly is the second most important pollinator after the bee, carrying out 1/3 of pollination services. Although they may look like a bee, they don't travel like one. Migrating flower flies can transport pollen at distances greater than 100 kilometers in comparison to a bee who rarely forage further to exceed distances further than 1 to 2 kilometers. These large distances are important in supporting gene flow, which consequently encourages genetic diversity. And don't forget, this is important in joining fragmented land, which is essential for biodiversity and hence food security. In addition to the adult life, bee mimics lay their eggs strategically near aphid colonies. Once a flower fly hatches from the egg, the larva gets straight to work. Aphid-eating larvae can consume up to 400 aphids and other pests during their development. Filter-feeding larvae, often aquatic, are usually within overwintering sites or stagnant water, such as tree cavities or stumps. In order to develop their next stage into the next stage, they break down organic matter and recycle it. The larvae itself has a major benefit to us before it even pupates. Now that we're up close and personal with the flower fly, it may look more familiar. However, don't be fooled, it is not a bee or a wasp. They have the tendency to mimic bees and wasps in order to trick their predators into thinking they have a stinger when in fact they don't. You may be wondering how on earth you would be able to tell the difference between a bee or a flowerfly, but it's really quite easy when you know what to look for. First giveaway is their big fly eyes, as well as their short antennae. Next, the scientific name for flies is diptera. Dip as in two, ptera meaning wings. Therefore, they have 2 wings, whereas a bee has 4. Now, if you really wanted to impress someone, you could tell that one is female or male by looking at its eyes. If you can make it out, a male's eyes are joined at the top or touching, like in this first image. Whereas if the eyes are separate or not touching, then it's a female, shown in the second picture. This overlooked animal has been found to be a pollination powerhouse. Research has found that flowerflies increase strawberry yields by 70%, as well as double the proportion of marketable fruit in comparison to bumblebees alone. Combined pollination with flowerflies increases size as well as nutritional value. So when you're at a farm stand next time, make sure to look for rounder fruit. It's likely a flowerfly has something to do with it. Moreover, the vitamin C content of these strawberries were measurably higher. This is a game changer for both human health as an important antioxidant, as well as plants' own resistance to disease. It is easy to overlook these insects, but they're doing a huge amount to make our life and our world a better place. There are a few flowers you can plant to support these wonderful creatures I presented to you today. Whilst these are particularly beneficial for the flowerflies, they support all pollinators in the area. Milkweed provides a place for both monarchs and flowerflies to flourish. In addition to these, consider planting common ninebark and spicebush, a deer-resistant plant that encourages swallowtail butterflies to lay their eggs on. Lastly, I wanted to give some ideas on how you can be more pollinator friendly. First off, planting native plants gives pollinators a variety of food to choose from. Native plants have co-evolved with these pollinators and therefore are resilient to the area's fluctuating climate and sandy conditions. As we talked about earlier, specific plants need specific pollinators. So planting a variety of shapes and colors and a range of bloom times will help give them a plethora of choices. You can get a list of native plants from the Rewild Long Island website, as well as Xerces Society to help guide your choices. A way to get started is by sowing the pollinator seeds packets I made. You can get one on the way out. These seeds are all native and are chosen specifically for the pollinators I mentioned today. Some of these include goldenrod, asters, and milkweed, but much, much more. Remember to pick your packet up before you leave. You can easily sow these in your garden by clearing an area, scratching the surface of the soil, and scattering them on the ground and watering them in. Secondly, just give yourself a break. Leaving some messy places in your garden, such as leaf piles, uncut grass, areas of woody debris, provide overwintering sites for flowerfly larvae and other juvenile species to flourish. As some filter-feeding larvae require water sources to develop into adult flowerflies, researchers are working on a mosquito-targeted larvicide. This will be a groundbreaking find, because it will allow us to protect the flowerfly larvae while not supporting the breeding ground for mosquitoes. Consider reducing or changing your pesticides to a more pollinator-friendly one. To bring in what we learned about flowerflies today, remember these larvae are very efficient pest removers. So planting milkweed near your crops like strawberries will act as pest management. And this is what we call companion planting. And it goes without saying, be thoughtful about protecting insects even when they're in your house. And lastly, supporting companies like Blossom Meadow Farm that are directly supporting alternative pollinators. Thank you for listening. Hopefully this presentation has shed some light on the invaluable role these underappreciated pollinators have on our environment, and that they are a friend rather than a pest. I'm happy to take questions if anyone has any.
What's the native range of the flower fly? Is it North America, Europe, or?
There's around 400 species.
Do you mind repeat the question for everybody?
Sure. The native range of the flower fly, should we look for it in the gardens here? Is it throughout North America, Europe, Africa, South America?
You can look for them here. There's around 400 species just in North America, but they spread worldwide, anywhere but Antarctica, essentially. 6,300 species, so you'll find them anywhere, really.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question about earlier in the season plantings, because a lot of the things you're talking about, like the asters and goldenrod, come this kind of time of year and into the fall. Is there something that's a spring planting that we should be looking at?
I'm not sure. I'm not a gardener, but
Well, you're 9 bark.
well, okay, the common 9 bark, which was mentioned earlier, that's a spring plant, Laura says, so that's.
Why are flower flies so overlooked as a pollinator?
Well, I'd probably say because of the lack of education and knowledge on them, firstly, but also the reputation the fly has as a pest. Because when you hear fly, a lot of people are turned off by that. But you gotta remember, it's not a pest, it's a friend.
What flowers do the civet flies prefer specifically?
So they prefer, well, some of these are examples, but they prefer flat open blooms with small clusters because they hover. They don't go into deeper flowers.
Lilla, could you talk a little bit more about the hovering aspect and how they differ from, like, bees, for example?
So a bee, when they pollinate, they really just get into the flower and they cover themselves with the pollen. But flower flies aren't as, well, they don't tend to be as fluffy, so this pollen doesn't stick to them as easily. So it still sticks to them, so, but less easily. So when they hover, they also, they take the nectar, and that's also another way.
Thank you.
So are these flower flies not experiencing the same problem that bees are experiencing? And are they more resistant?
Yeah, it's fair to say they're more resilient. I mean, flower flies, they can fly during poor weather, so when it's raining, whereas bees don't. Flower flies also, they live in tall grasses and stuff like that, rather than a hive, which a bee does. So they're easily able to change their environment. But because they are of course bees are too, but because there's such a variation worldwide, they're able to adapt. Also because they're migratory, they have to adapt to their climate they're in. So as it's getting hotter, they're able to sustain that heat or coldness, yeah.
So Lilla's been working on flower flies for a month. And I mean, it is amazing what she's but it's so nice to go to the beach at the same time.
I was wondering, does the flower fly migrate?
Yes. Yeah, they can migrate up to 100 kilometers at a time, carrying pollen that can stay viable for 2 days.
From where to where?
I imagine they move when the temperature changes in the area, but I guess that would vary based on the species.
So, question about the availability of flower flies. Perhaps you can address this. You can buy ladybugs for your garden. Can you buy flower flies?
Right, so, do you want me
No, yeah, you say.
It's kind of interesting. I mean, Lilla and I just met a month ago, and we started talking. Do I really do so fast? I did.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Everyone, this is Laura Clary of Blossom Meadow Farm.
So,
She and Lilla have been working together for about a month.
A month, and that's it. You know, when you go to your garden or a farm stand and you see misshapen fruit, a misshapen apple, a pepper, a cat-faced strawberry, and Lilla mentioned this a bit, the reason why it's misshapen is because that side of the flower was not pollinated or was poorly pollinated, right? It's amazing when you think about that. When you go to the grocery store, this whole pollination crisis is masked because they grade the fruit, right? And so, honestly, I never thought in my life that I'd be working on fly pollination. It seems so obtuse, but that's where we are. And I think that Lilla and I are in this wonderful moment in time because we grew up with the world being a little bit different than it is now, and we can chart the path forward. And so I feel so excited about flower flies that have been around us all these years, but we've just never given them credit for their work. I'm sure that all of you have seen them, but you thought that they were a bee, right? So here, Lilla and I met, and I realized that she's not only a smart cookie, but she's very determined. And so I thought it'd be really fun to be research colleagues. And so we are embarking on a new research project that's starting in 2026. So, you know, in the 70s, people heard about, and I know you touched on this, and I don't want to, I just talk a little more than you do. So, in the 70s, remember how people would talk about companion planting, and it was a really big deal that you could plant a marigold next to your tomatoes and your peppers, and you know, a whole book was written about this. Well, Lilla and I have been talking, and there's a new chapter to that, and that is companion planting, thinking of flower flies, right? So the paper that Lilla mentioned about vitamin C, that paper was just published in December in Journal of Pollination Ecology, JPE. It was a really big deal. And so strawberries that are pollinated not only by bumblebees, but also by flower flies, not only are they heavier, more well-rounded because that flower is well pollinated, but it has significantly more vitamin C in it, and it's statistically significant, as you pointed out. I mean, this is huge, right? So when you go to an organic farm and you think, oh, this berry tastes better because no pesticides were used, or the soils are better. Yes, but it could also be because more pollinators visited that flower. So at our farm, I see it as a farm laboratory, right? You've been there many, many times at this point, and we grow strawberries, red raspberries, blueberries, black raspberries. The jam, which they made, is for sale in the back, and we'll do tastings. But in my red raspberry greenhouse, I have a very large swath adjacent to that of common milkweed. Now, as Lilla pointed out, there are many flower flies that lay their eggs right next to an aphid colony. And flower fly larvae can actually eat up to 50 aphids a day. It's pretty amazing. So, you know, we've always said, oh, milkweed, it's good for monarch butterflies. Yes, but it's also great for increasing your pollinator population, right? So Lilla and I are going to further define what that flower fly neighborhood looks like. So I have found long-tailed aphid eating flower flies. I forget what the scientific name is off the top of my head. We have found them not only on the aphid colonies on the common milkweed, but in the spring I have found long-tailed aphid eaters pollinating our raspberries. And those specimens I have actually sent off to Jed Rubens, who is getting her degree in nature illustration at the Yale Peabody Museum. Because it's not just about bees anymore, it's about flower flies. So I love that we are all working together, and next year is going to be so fun when you come back. And so we've done so much in just 1 month. So for Lilla to give this presentation was like huge. So thank you.
Any questions about the farm? Any more questions for Lilla? Yes.
Hi, I'm glad that you mentioned give credit to these flies that pollinate. And you also mentioned the importance, it's not just planting the flowers that will attract these pollinators, but you need habitat. And you mentioned the leaf piles, leaving your leaves, let them break down into humus. Maybe the grasses that are necessary, not long grasses, but like the native grasses. So it takes a whole habitat to make a diverse community for these pollinators. And not only the flies, but also tiny wasps. There are literally hundreds of species of pollinating wasps, which don't sting, but they're really important as well. But thank you for your presentation.
That's okay.
I know somebody asked about wildflowers in the spring or native flowers, so wouldn't that be clover and violet and things like that that are native and they come out in the spring?
You see so the flower fly larvae overwinter.
I'm sorry, do you mind?
Sorry. So the flower fly larvae overwinter, and then some of the flower fly adults actually overwinter as well. Flower flies can only, as Lilla pointed out, go to short, flat flowers because they don't have tongues, right? So, a lot of times I can't identify a pollinator, but I at least can tell how long its tongue is by looking if it's visiting clover, right? So bumblebees go to clover because they have medium and long-sized tongues. So in the spring, beach plum is fabulous because it has a short flower, right? So you always see them on beach plum. And then also on ninebark. In my studies, I haven't really seen them on violets, but maybe I just haven't stared at them long enough, honestly. But any short, flat flower, you will see them. They really, look, just like us, everybody just wants to have some food and a nice place to live. And so all these creatures, no matter if you're a squirrel or a flower fly or a human, they're the same concepts, over and over again. So.
What was that other plant that ended in bark?
Common ninebark.
What is that?
Oh, it's fabulous. So here, our farm is only 2 acres, right? So, and we have tons of things blooming, multiple things blooming at one time. So then there's always food for everybody throughout the entire growing season. If you just have one shrub and it blooms for a week and a half, great, but somebody needs to eat every day, right? So we planted common ninebark, which gets about 8 feet tall. So just like a skyscraper. It's a large bush.
A bush. Okay.
And really is pretty cool looking. So beach plum you can also grow as a nice tall bush. And then right now you could be eating your beach plums off of it, which is quite nice. But anything with a flat, short flower they'll go to.
Hi, thank you. I'm just curious. I try to attract a lot of pollinators to my backyard, but then my neighbor sprays for ticks, and I'm wondering if his spray is going to kill the the bugs in my property, once they fly over, they don't know where to go, right?
I mean, if I'm honest, it's yeah, if it's in the air near that they're flying through there, it's gonna affect them.
So we underestimate the olfactory senses of bees and other insects. So if you're a mason bee, which is a solitary bee, and they spray next door, invariably your mason bees will go to a nicer area to live. There was a paper that came out looking at monarch caterpillars, and the overspray does affect those caterpillars, right? So it is really an issue. Long Islanders love to zone, right? So, zone things. So perhaps if there's a small area that you're always going to in your yard, perhaps that's the area that you could spray for ticks, but leave everything else unsprayed, right? So it is difficult though because of so many tick-borne diseases.
Okay, I have to repeat my question because I didn't actually get an answer. I just wanted to know whether you can purchase flower flies.
There's a company in Italy that is currently raising some of these. There is potential for commercializing the species in the United States, but it's a very new industry. So so it's getting there. Sadly, that's where we are. But right now, the only species that are commercialized are, of course, honeybees, bumblebees, mason bees, and leaf cutters. But probably in the next 5 years, you'll start to see syrphids in general.
I have a question about the white moths that I always think are cabbage moths. And are they, they're everywhere, so are they good pollinators for other things?
The cat, and like Lilla said, anything that's furry that goes to flower is a pollinator. Cabbage moths, honestly, I don't know a lot about, or cabbage whites, sorry, I don't know a lot about how much flower fidelity they have. Like bees are great pollinators because you'll see them work the same type of flower over and over again. Flies don't have flower fidelity. So they'll go to one flower here and be like, oh, let me go over here, and it could be a totally different flower. So that's one thing that I'm working on with our flower fly nursery. It keeps them on the crop that you want them to pollinate. All these research things that we're working on are on our website, blossommeadow.com. But it's all, like, you see, she's quoting papers that were just published. Like, you guys are really cutting edge.
I have a question. Laura, are you raising flower flies? And how do you cultivate them if you are? Like you were saying, they're doing this in Italy, they're trying to commercialize it, but could a home gardener do something?
Soon. I've been working, I wrote my first article on fly pollination 10 years ago. I honestly thought I'd be farther along than I am now. I need another field season, and so I'm really glad that Lilla is now a research colleague of mine, because honestly, it's lonely. And to show someone your tender underbelly of your research is really scary. And so Lilla has been great to bounce things off of. But the only interview so far I've given is at Greenport Library. Christopher Bianchi, he's so nice. But yeah, so we'll have some good things to report next year, but it's like really a little too early to say anything more. But it's looking good, so.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question?
I'm going to take over now. One thing I love about our Peconic Landing members, the people who live here are members, is that anything environmental, they show up. There's continued interest throughout your life on environmental matters is admirable. I love it. But I'm a little curious about these people who don't live here. At the risk of putting you on the spot, can you just tell me who you, where, yeah.
I'm Ariel, and this is the crew that tends 7 acres of vegetables on Shelter Island for Sylvester Manor. They grow food for local food pantries for 135 families on Shelter Island and our farm stand. And we are all about the pollinators. We are all about beneficial. We are all about growing food that is nutrient dense for all income levels. And we love no spray. We love beneficial rows. We love living pathways. We love organic. Beyond organic is what we try and do at Sylvester Manor. So we came to learn. These are all apprenticeship farmers who are here to build their skills and their knowledge and to share that with other people and be the ripple effect that is what you do. So we are stoked to hear you as a young individual. I hope it inspires the individuals that work with me and my team, that they go on and do cool research projects. So thank you.
Tell me your name.
I'm Ariel.
All right, well, yeah, do the clap. So the other exciting part of this for me is that I just got 1, 2 more speakers to come back at another time and make. Well, I'm telling you that people, we need to know what we need to know more about what you're doing. We need to know more about what you're doing. So I would love to invite you back sometime. So I think we've covered all the questions. Now please do stop. We have Margaret waving at everybody. Oh, uh-oh.
How does the firefly pollinate?
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. The reason why a flower fly visits a flower is because it needs the nectar for carbohydrates and the pollen for protein. So it's kind of like eating chicken and rice for dinner for us. The reason why it needs protein is for gonadal development. In order for that new, freshly emerged from its pupa flower fly, in order to become sexually mature, it needs to eat the pollen. So by virtue of it going to the flower, it is now a pollinator. Now the neat thing is that on our strawberries, you would not believe how many flower flies I saw pollinating them. So even though, as Lilla points out, they're not as furry as some of the bees, their sheer number makes them a great pollinator. So I have an Instagram, Blossom Meadow Farm, and I have many videos of the flower flies visiting the strawberries, visiting the raspberries. I mean, it's just amazing, but I assure you that all of you have seen them as well. It's just that your lives are busy, right? So you're not looking to see if they have fly eyes and then to figure out if it's a boy or a girl to see if its eyes are touching, right? But luckily Lilla is figuring that out for us. Yes. Oh, did you mean fireflies? I'm so sorry. Yeah, Lilla, how do fireflies think?
Similar way. It's a similar way as a fly does. They just do it at night. So like moths, night blooming flowers. So like I mentioned earlier, they open up at night, which makes it easier for them to access. So they do the same. They fly in and they do their thing and then they pollinate. But it's in the same way, just at night for night blooming flowers.
But we use pollinate, it sounds like an active verb, but really it is just sort of, like it just falls off however they touch, right?
Well, it's plant sex,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so, and however you want to do the plant sex is fine.
But the insect doesn't have to do anything.
It's not trying to.
Yeah, it just like fell off, right? Yeah.
The only reason why a flower produces nectar is to attract a pollinator. Once that flower is pollinated, that flower stops producing nectar immediately, right? It's kind of fascinating that it's just like this treat to entice a pollinator to come. But yeah, it's kind of fascinating, plant sex.
And just to riff off of that for just a second, I heard this thing and it was on NPR The World, I think, and it's research about the notion that plants can feel. And this research, anybody else hear this article? There was I think it was a tomato plant. It was a tomato plant, and there's a certain caterpillar, big shiny green caterpillar. Hornworm?
Yeah.
Hornworm. And as the hornworm, I think, just comes into contact with the plant, the tomato plant creates some pheromone, I don't know, hormone, something that attracts the wasp. So the wasp shows up and lays its eggs in the hornworm, but only got called there by the plant. So the plant is yelling for help. And there's even research about, there's apparently a vine in Chile that can grow across different structures and plants, and each, so say this part of the vine is against a gray rock, and this part is against a brown tree. The different parts of the vine are camouflaging, the different parts of the same vine are camouflaging their background. So there's some notion that that plant is doing something like seeing. So I'm going to wrap it up, I promise. But then the interviewer said, well, what does that do to the precept, the concept of veganism? Like, do no harm, like eat things that don't. I don't know the answer to that. I am certainly super respectful of vegans. Please go do your thing. I just think it's super interesting. Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Please do go see Margaret at the back. She's guarding the delicious jam. Well, I'm not kidding. I want your contact information.
It'd be great to talk.
Walk with me. Yeah, please, if you want to sign up for our North Fork Environmental Council newsletter, see Margaret in the back. We have a sign-up sheet, and Laura will be giving out samples of her jam so you can taste before you buy. Thank you, everybody.
We're on Main Street. So we have all the jams available to taste, which is pretty jazzy. I like the peach one. Is that a photo? This is a really wonderful called Trossing I'm not here.
Hello.